In the Ashmolean Museum at Oxford, behind protective glass, there is a small object that claims to remember what we have forgotten. A clay prism, four-sided, small enough to hold in your hand, covered in tiny wedge-shaped marks that scholars call cuneiform. It sits in silence now, as it has for nearly a century since it was discovered, waiting for someone to truly understand what it says. This unassuming object is called the weld-blundell Prism, named after the man who purchased it and the expedition that found it. To archaeologists, it is one of the most complete copies of the Sumerian king list ever discovered. To the people who created it 5,000 years ago, it was something else entirely. A record of every king who ever ruled, starting 241,000 years before it was written. Tonight, we're going to examine this extraordinary document. Not with the dismissive eye of modern skepticism, not with the credulous acceptance of those who want to believe, but with genuine curiosity about what the ancient scribes were actually recording. Because the Sumerian king list presents us with a puzzle that historians have tried to solve for over a century and failed. The puzzle is simple to state. The first part of the list records kings who ruled for impossible lengths of time. 28,800 years, 36,000 years, 43,200 years. Then a flood comes. And after the flood, the reign lengths immediately become normal. 23 years. 36 years. Numbers that match the reigns of historically verified kings. Why would scribes who carefully recorded accurate history suddenly make up impossible numbers? And then just as suddenly stop? That is what we will explore tonight. In this quiet space between waking and sleeping, where mysteries can breathe and ancient voices can finally be heard. Before we can understand what the king list says, we need to understand what it is. The Sumerian king list is not a single document. It exists in multiple copies, found in different cities, written at different times, spanning perhaps 1,000 years of Mesopotamian history. Some copies are fragmentary, broken tablets with missing sections. Others are remarkably complete. The weld-blundell Prism, discovered at Larsa in 1922, is the most intact. But there are others. The tablet from Kish, the UCBC tablet, now at Berkeley. Fragments from Nippur, Ur, and Isin. What makes these documents remarkable is their consistency. Written by different scribes in different cities across different centuries, they tell essentially the same story. They use the same format. They list the same kings in the same order. They record the same impossible numbers. This consistency matters because it tells us we're not looking at one scribe's fantasy. We're looking at an official tradition, maintained across generations, copied carefully from older sources, treated as historical record. The format of the king list is straightforward. For each king, it records 3 things: the city where kingship was held, the name of the king, and the length of his reign. Then it notes when kingship was transferred to a new city, either through conquest or by divine decree, or simply when one dynasty ended and another began. The structure implies that kingship was a singular thing, held by one city at a time, passed from place to place across the millennia. And the story begins with a phrase that still resonates across 5,000 years. When kingship descended from heaven. When kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. That is how the Sumerian king list begins. Not with a human decision, not with a conquest or a revolution, but with something descending from heaven to earth. The Sumerians did not imagine their civilization arising from their own efforts. They believed it was given to them, established, instituted from above. Eridu was the first city, the oldest continuously inhabited settlement in Mesopotamia, according to both archaeology and tradition. It sits in the marshes of southern Iraq, where the Tigris and Euphrates once emptied into the Persian Gulf. A place of reeds and water and ancient memory. Excavations at Eridu have revealed layers of occupation going back to at least 5,400 BCE, perhaps earlier. Each layer showing a temple, built on top of an earlier temple, going down and down through the centuries. The earliest temples are tiny, simple reed structures, but they establish a pattern that would continue for 3,000 years. A shrine facing the same direction, an altar in the same position, a continuity of worship that spans the entirety of Sumerian civilization. And here, according to the king list, kingship first appeared, descending from the heavens, landing in the marshes, beginning a record that would stretch across 241,000 years. What does it mean to say kingship descended from heaven? Modern scholars typically interpret this as religious language, a way of saying that royal authority was divinely ordained, that kings ruled by the will of the god. And perhaps that's all it is. Poetic framing for a political document. The ancient equivalent of "by the grace of God." But the Sumerians used very specific language. They didn't say the gods blessed the kings. They didn't say the kings were chosen. They said kingship descended, came down, arrived from somewhere else, as if it were a physical thing, a package of knowledge, a system of governance, delivered to humanity from above. In Eridu, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. That is what the king list tells us. The first named ruler in human history. Alulim of Eridu. 28,800 years on the throne. Let that number settle for a moment. 28,800 years. Modern Homo sapiens have existed for perhaps 300,000 years. Behavioral modernity, art, language, complex culture emerged maybe 70,000 years ago. Alulim's single reign supposedly lasted longer than all of recorded human history. Obviously, no single human being ruled for 28,800 years. Our bodies simply don't last that long, even in the best conditions imaginable. So, what are we looking at? The standard academic explanation is that these numbers are mythological. Legendary kings given legendary lifespans. The distant past made more impressive through exaggeration. But there's a problem with this explanation. The numbers aren't random. 28,800 is not a number you get by casually inflating a lifespan. It's a very specific mathematical construct. 28,800 equals 8 times 3,600. And 3,600 is a number that appears throughout Sumerian culture. It's called a sar, the basic large unit of Sumerian mathematics. The Sumerians used a base 60 number system, not base 10 like we do. And 3,600 is 60 times 60, the square of their numerical base. When you start examining the reign lengths of the antediluvian kings, this pattern appears over and over. Every single reign is a multiple of 3,600. Every one. This suggests the numbers aren't arbitrary exaggerations. They're encoded in a mathematical system, constructed according to rules, built on a foundation of Sumerian numerology. What those rules encode, what the numbers actually mean, is where the mystery deepens. Let us name them all. The 8 kings who ruled before the flood. In Eridu, Alulim ruled for 28,800 years. Then Alalga ruled for 36,000 years. 2 kings, 64,800 years. Then kingship was transferred to Bad Tibira. In Bad Tibira, Enmen-Luana ruled for 43,200 years. Then Enmen-Gal-Ana ruled for 28,800 years. Then the divine Dumuzi, the shepherd, ruled for 36,000 years. 3 kings, 108,000 years. Then kingship was transferred to Lara. In Larak, En-Sipad Zid-Ana ruled for 28,800 years. 1 king, 28,800 years. Then kingship was transferred to Sipar. In Sipar, Enmendur-Ana ruled for 21,000 years. 1 king, 21,000 years. Then kingship was transferred to Shurupak. In Shurupak, Ubara Tutu ruled for 18,600 years. 1 king, 18,600 years. Then the flood swept over. 8 kings, 5 cities, 241,200 years in total, according to the most complete version. Or, as other copies record it, 432,000 years. The difference depending on which copies we use and how we interpret certain damaged sections. Notice the progression. Eridu, Bad Tibira, Larak, Sipar, Shurupak. These are all real places. Archaeologists have found them, excavated them, confirmed their extreme antiquity. Eridu is indeed one of the oldest cities in Mesopotamia. Shurupak is indeed associated with the flood. It's the home city of the Sumerian Noah. The geography is not random. And notice the names. Some scholars have found meaning in them. Alulim may mean stag. Enmen-Luana may mean Lord of the Divine Powers. Dumuzi is a well-known deity, a god of shepherds and vegetation. Are these names, titles, dynasties, something else entirely? The king list doesn't explain. It simply records 8 kings, 5 cities, thousands upon thousands of years. And then the flood swept over. Let us look more closely at these impossible numbers. 28,800 years. 36,000 years, 43,200 years. As we noted, these are all multiples of 3,600. The Sar, the fundamental large unit of Sumerian mathematics. 28,800 is 8 Sar. 36,000 is 10 Sar. 43,200 is 12 Sar. But there's something even more interesting. These numbers also connect to astronomical cycles. The Sumerians were obsessive astronomers. They tracked the movements of stars and planets with extraordinary precision. They developed the 360-degree circle, the 60-minute hour, the 60-second minute, all based on their observations of the heavens. One of the longest astronomical cycles they knew about was precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, which causes the stars to appear to shift over very long periods. A complete precession cycle takes approximately 25,920 years. But ancient astronomers working with slightly different values often used round numbers. 26,000 years. Or in Sumerian mathematical terms, something close to 7¼ Sar. Now look at those reign lengths again. Multiples of Sar. Astronomical time units, encoded in the reigns of kings. Some researchers have suggested that the antediluvian reign lengths aren't lifespans at all. They're astronomical periods, tracking celestial events, encoded in the names of legendary kings. Others suggest they represent dynasties, not individuals. That Alulim ruled for 28,800 years really means the House of Alulim held power for this period. Still others propose these are symbolic numbers, religious or mythological values assigned to the Golden Age before the catastrophe. What we can say with certainty is that these numbers are not random. They follow patterns. They reflect Sumerian mathematical thinking. They mean something. The question is what? There is one number that appears again and again in ancient chronologies, across different cultures, across different millennia. 432,000. Some versions of the Sumerian king list give this as the total reign of all antediluvian kings. 432,000 years before the flood. This same number appears in Hindu cosmology. The Kali Yuga, the current age of darkness, lasts 432,000 years. The complete cycle of 4 yugas multiplies this by 10. 4,320,000 years. In Norse mythology, the warriors of Valhalla number 432,000. 800 warriors from each of 540 doors. 432,000 is also significant in music. Concert pitch, A in some tuning systems, vibrates at 432 Hz. Proponents of this tuning claim it aligns with natural frequencies. Coincidence? Shared inheritance from a common source? Mathematical inevitability? We cannot say with certainty, but the recurrence is striking. 432,000 breaks down elegantly in Sumerian mathematics. It equals 120 sar. 120 times 3,600. It also connects to astronomical cycles. The precession of the equinoxes shifts 1 degree every 72 years approximately. 72 times 6,000 equals 432,000. 30 degrees of precession times 72 equals 2,160 years, 1 astrological age. 2,160 times 200 equals 432,000. The numbers interlock. They refer to each other. They build a mathematical framework that spans human timekeeping and celestial observation. Were the Sumerians encoding astronomical knowledge in their king list? Preserving observations of precession in the reigns of legendary monarchs? Or are these patterns that we impose on ancient data? Finding what we want to see? Seeing connections where none exist? The honest answer is that we don't know. The patterns are there, but what they mean remains uncertain. Then the flood swept over. 5 words in English, 4 words in Sumerian. The most dramatic line in the king list. No explanation. No description of what happened. No account of rising waters or drowning cities. Just a simple statement of fact. The flood swept over. And with those words, everything changes. Before the flood, rain lengths are impossible. 28,800 years. 36,000 years. 43,200 years. After the flood, rain lengths become normal. The first post-flood king, Jushur of Kish, rules for 1,200 years. Still long by modern standards, but orders of magnitude shorter than before. Within a few generations, the numbers shrink further. Etana ruled for 1,560 years, but he's noted as the one who ascended to heaven. Later kings rule for 400 years, then 300, then 100. By the time we reach historically verifiable kings, rulers whose existence is confirmed by contemporary documents, the reign lengths are perfectly realistic. 20 years, 35 years, 42 years. This transition is one of the most fascinating aspects of the king list. Why would scribes who invented mythological lifespans suddenly decide to stop? Why would they maintain two completely different systems of chronology in the same document? The flood serves as a boundary, a dividing line between two different kinds of time, before and after, myth and history. Or perhaps, and this is the question that haunts us, between a different world and our own. The Sumerians clearly believed the flood was real. They wrote about it in multiple texts. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the Eridu Genesis, the Atrahasis Epic. In all of these accounts, the flood is not merely a local disaster. It is a world-ending catastrophe, a reset of everything, after which civilization had to begin again. We are not entirely dependent on cuneiform tablets for knowledge of the king list. We have another source. A Babylonian priest who lived in the 3rd century BCE. His name was Berossus. Berossus was a priest of Marduk in Babylon who wrote a history of his country in Greek. His work, called the Babyloniaca, was intended to explain Mesopotamian culture to the Greek world. The original text is lost, but fragments survive in quotations by later Greek and Roman writers. And those fragments include a version of the king list. According to Berossus, 10 kings ruled before the flood. Not 8. 10. Their combined reigns totaled 432,000 years. The same suspicious number we've already encountered. Berossus gives slightly different names than the Sumerian tablets. Rendered into Greek, they become Aloros, Alaparos, Amelin, Ammonon, and so forth. But the basic story is the same. A sequence of kings ruling for impossible spans. Then a great flood. Then a new beginning. What's significant about Berossus is the context. He was writing in the 3rd century BCE. The Sumerian tablets we have date from roughly 2100 to 1800 BCE. That's a gap of about 1,500 years. And yet, Berossus knew the same tradition, the same numbers, the same sequence, the same flood. This means the king list tradition was preserved continuously for at least 1,500 years. Probably much longer. passed down from Sumerian to Akkadian to Babylonian scribes, maintained as official record across the rise and fall of empires. Cultures don't preserve meaningless numbers for millennia. They preserve what matters to them, what they believe to be true, what they want future generations to remember. The king list was not a forgotten curiosity. It was a living document, copied and recopied, consulted and cited, across 3,000 years of Mesopotamian civilization. Why does Berossus record 10 antediluvian kings when the Sumerian tablets record 8? The difference has sparked considerable scholarly debate. Some suggest Berossus had access to traditions that were lost before the cuneiform tablets we possess were written. Others propose scribal errors in either tradition. Still others note that different cities maintained different versions of the list, emphasizing their own dynasties. There's another intriguing possibility. The number 10 appears in another ancient tradition of pre-flood patriarchs. The Book of Genesis lists 10 generations from Adam to Noah. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah. 10 ancestors before the flood. And like the Sumerian kings, these biblical patriarchs lived for extraordinary spans. Adam lived 930 years. Methuselah lived 969 years, the longest of all. Noah himself was 600 years old when the flood came. The numbers are different. Hundreds of years rather than tens of thousands. But the pattern is the same. Impossibly long lifespans before the flood. Normal lifespans after. Scholars have long noted the parallels between Mesopotamian flood traditions and the biblical account. The stories are clearly related, either through direct influence or through a common source now lost. The Sumerian king list and the Genesis genealogies both preserve a memory of the time before the flood, a time when things were different, when humans, or something like humans, lived for ages we can barely comprehend. Whether we interpret this as mythology, as encoded astronomy, as dynasties rather than individuals, or as something we don't yet understand, the pattern persists. Multiple cultures remember the same thing. A long age before the waters came, followed by a catastrophe that changed everything. After the flood had swept over and kingship had descended from heaven, kingship was in Kish. The same phrase. Kingship descended from heaven. As if civilization were being installed again. Rebooted. Given a fresh start. Kish becomes the first post-flood capital. And immediately, the character of the list changes. The first dynasty of Kish contains 23 kings. Not 8 kings across 5 cities. 23 in a single city. Their combined reigns total 24,510 years. Still long, but nothing like the 241,000 years of the antediluvian era. And individual reigns are shrinking. The first king, Jushur, rules for 1,200 years. Then Kulasina-Bel rules for 960 years. Then Nangish-Lishma rules for 670 years. The numbers descend like a staircase, stepping down from mythological time to historical time, generation by generation. By the middle of the first Kish dynasty, reign lengths are in the 300 to 400 year range. By the end, they're dropping below 100. The second dynasty of Kish shows further compression. The dynasty of Uruk shows kings reigning for realistic periods. And eventually we reach rulers whose reigns can be cross-checked against other documents. Treaties, building inscriptions, letters, economic records, real history, verified history, numbers that make sense. This gradual descent is itself remarkable. It suggests the scribes weren't just making things up. They had a system, a logic to their chronology. Even if we don't understand what that logic was, we can see its effects. A careful transition from impossible numbers to possible ones. From the age before the flood to the age we know. Let us return to the question of multiple copies, because this is crucial to understanding what the king list represents. We have fragments and tablets from across Mesopotamia. Different cities, different centuries, different scribes with different purposes. And yet they agree. Not perfectly. There are variations, but substantially. The same 8 antediluvian kings appear in the same order. The same cities are named. The same impossible numbers are recorded. The same flood divides the two eras. Consider what this means. A scribe in Nippur around 1800 BCE copies a tablet that agrees with a tablet copied in Larsa a century earlier, which agrees with a tradition preserved by Berossus 1,500 years later, which records the same flood story found in the Epic of Gilgamesh. This isn't one person's invention. This is an institutional tradition. Official memory. Maintained and transmitted across millennia. The variations that do exist are instructive. Some copies include local kings that others omit. Some emphasize certain dynasties over others. The order of some early post-flood dynasties varies. But the antediluvian section remains remarkably stable, as if this part of the tradition was considered especially sacred, especially important, not to be altered. The scribes were careful copyists. We know this from other texts. They checked their work. They noted variants. They indicated when their source was damaged or unclear. When they copied the king list, they were preserving something they believed was true, something that mattered, something that future generations needed to know. What did they think they were preserving? The memory of a world before the catastrophe. A world where time worked differently. Where kings ruled for ages. Before the flood swept over. As the king list moves forward in time, it becomes increasingly verifiable. And this verification is important. Consider Gilgamesh, the legendary hero of the great epic, builder of the walls of Uruk, seeker of immortality. He appears in the king list. Fifth king of the first dynasty of Uruk. Reign length, 126 years. For a long time, scholars assumed Gilgamesh was entirely mythological. A legendary figure, nothing more. Then inscriptions were found referring to him as an actual king. Contemporary documents that mention his name. He was real. The king list was right. Later rulers are even better documented. Enmebarajesi of Kish appears in the king list with a reign of 900 years. And we have actual inscriptions from his reign. Fragments that confirm his existence. By the time we reach the dynasties of the late 3rd millennium BCE, the king list is fully historical. Every king can be verified. Every reign can be cross-checked. The impossible numbers are gone completely. This creates an uncomfortable situation for historians. The same document that records 30-year reigns for known historical figures also records 30,000-year reigns for kings we can't verify. It transitions seamlessly from one to the other, using the same format, the same language, the same apparent confidence. Either the scribes believed the antediluvian section was just as historical as the later sections, Or they had some other purpose we don't understand. The document doesn't signal where myth ends and history begins. It treats everything as equally factual, which is either naive or means something we haven't grasped. We must be careful not to impose modern categories on ancient minds. We distinguish sharply between myth and history, between legend and fact, between what really happened and what people believed happened. The Sumerians may not have made these distinctions, or they may have made different distinctions, categories we don't understand, boundaries we can't see. When a Sumerian scribe recorded that Alulim ruled for 28,800 years, what did he think he was writing? Possibility 1. He was recording mythology, sacred stories about the distant past, no more intended as literal truth than the Greek myths about Zeus and the Titans. Possibility 2. He was recording encoded information, astronomical data, dynasty lengths, mathematical constructs that meant something other than literal years. Possibility 3. He was recording what he believed to be true, the actual history of his world as it had been transmitted to him. A world where, before the catastrophe, things were different. Time worked differently. Kings lived differently. We cannot know with certainty. The scribes left no commentary, no explanations, just the bare record. But we can note some things. The king list was not a religious text. It wasn't recited in temples. It wasn't part of the liturgy. It was an administrative document, kept in scribal schools, used to establish precedent and continuity, to show which dynasties had legitimacy, which cities had held kingship. If the antediluvian section was pure mythology, why include it in an administrative record? Why not begin with the flood, with the first verifiable kings? Unless the scribes believed the antediluvian era was real, part of the actual history they were recording, different from later history, but still history. Let us sit with the problem of time for a moment. We measure time by years, orbits of the Earth around the Sun, fixed, regular, unchanging. A year was a year 5,000 years ago. A year will be a year 5,000 years from now. So when the king list says a king ruled for 28,800 years, we assume it means 28,800 orbits of the Earth around the Sun. And we know no human being could live that long. But what if the Sumerians were measuring something else? Some scholars have proposed that the antediluvian years were actually months, or days, or some other unit entirely. If you divide 28,800 by 12, you get 2,400. Still impossibly long for a single human life, but closer to the realm of plausibility. If you divide by some other factor, say 60, the Sumerian numerical base, you get 480. A long reign, but not impossible for a dynasty. But this explanation has problems. The scribes knew the difference between years and months. They had separate words for them. They used them correctly in other documents. Why would they suddenly confuse them in the king list? And the mathematical patterns we've observed work best when the numbers are taken at face value. 28,800 years is 8 Sar. 28,800 months is a meaningless figure. Whatever the scribes were encoding, it seems to require the large numbers, not reduced versions. Perhaps the answer lies not in converting the numbers, but in understanding what they represented. Not lifespans of individuals, but something else entirely. Astronomical periods, cosmic cycles, ages of the world. The numbers mean something. We just haven't fully cracked the code. Let us look more deeply at the Sar. Cliet elf 600. 60 times 60. The fundamental large unit of Sumerian mathematics. The Sumerians used a sexagesimal system. Base 60 rather than base 10. This might seem strange to us. We're used to counting in tens. 10 fingers, 10 digits, decimal system. But 60 has advantages. It's divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, and 60. Far more factors than 10. Far more useful for complex calculations. This is why we still have 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute, 360 degrees in a circle. All Sumerian legacies. The Sar 3600 appears throughout Sumerian culture. It's used for measuring land, for counting goods, for astronomical calculations. In the context of time, a Sar of years would be 3,600 years. An age, an era, a span beyond individual human memory. The antediluvian reign lengths are all multiples of Sar. 8 Sar, 10 Sar, 12 Sar, This regularity suggests the numbers are constructed, built according to mathematical principles, not random exaggerations. But constructed for what purpose? To track astronomical cycles, to preserve ancient knowledge in numerical form, to mark cosmic ages according to a system we've forgotten. The Tsar provides a framework, a grid on which the impossible numbers are placed. Understanding the framework might help us understand what the numbers mean. Or it might just be that the Sumerians liked round numbers, multiples of their base. Nothing more mysterious than that. But then why stop using them after the flood? Whoa. Let us pursue the astronomical hypothesis further. The precession of the equinoxes is the slow wobble of Earth's axis. It takes approximately 25,920 years to complete one full cycle. This means the spring equinox rises against a slowly changing backdrop of constellations, moving about 1 degree every 72 years. One zodiac sign every 2,160 years. The full cycle of 12 signs takes roughly 26,000 years. The Sumerians knew about precession, or at least they made observations that reflect precession. Their astronomical records show awareness of very long cycles. Now consider the antediluvian total of 432,000 years. Divide by 72 the years per degree of precession. You get 6,000. 6,000 degrees, which equals 16.67 complete precessional cycles. Or consider 432,000 divided by 25,920 equals 16.67. Almost exactly 16 2/3 precessional cycles. Is that significant? Maybe. Maybe not. The numbers can be made to work many ways. Find the right divisor and patterns emerge. That doesn't mean the patterns are real. But there's another connection. The Hindu concept of a Mahayuga, a complete cycle of 4 ages, spans 4,320,000 years. Exactly 10 times the Sumerian antediluvian total. The Kali Yuga alone is 432,000 years. Exactly the same number. These traditions developed independently. India and Mesopotamia had contact. But the parallels are striking even so. Did both cultures inherit astronomical knowledge from a common source? Encode the same cycles in their chronologies? Preserve memories of precession in their mythological numbers? We cannot prove it, but we cannot easily dismiss it either. The king list doesn't mention them. But parallel Sumerian traditions speak of figures who accompany the antediluvian kings. The Apkallu, the seven sages. These were beings of extraordinary wisdom. Half man, half fish, according to some accounts. Sent by Enki, the god of wisdom, to teach humanity. Each sage was associated with a different antediluvian king. Each brought specific knowledge to humanity. Writing, law, architecture, medicine, the arts of civilization. After the flood, the sages disappear. Their work is done. Humanity must now carry on alone. This tradition adds dimension to the king list. The antediluvian era wasn't just a time of long-reigned kings. It was a time of instruction, a tutorial period, when beings greater than humans taught civilization to our ancestors. The longest reigns cluster at the beginning. Alulim, 28,800 years. Alalgar, 36,000 years. Enmenluana, 43,200 years. Perhaps these weren't individuals at all. Perhaps they were eras of instruction. Ages named after patron figures. Periods when specific knowledge was being transmitted. The seven sages, the Apkallu, appear in later Mesopotamian tradition as figures to be invoked. Protective spirits. Sources of ancient wisdom. They carved their images on foundation stones. Fishmen guarding the borders between worlds. Whatever we make of these traditions, they suggest the antediluvian era was seen as fundamentally different from what came after. Not just older, different in kind. A time when heaven and earth were closer. When wisdom flowed more freely. Before the flood separated the worlds. The last king before the flood was Ubara-Tutu. He ruled in Shurupak for 18,600 years. Shurupak, the city of the flood hero. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the survivor of the flood is called Utnapishtim. He tells Gilgamesh that he lived in Shurupak before the catastrophe. In the Sumerian flood story, the survivor is called Ziusudra. He too comes from Shurupak. And according to some traditions, Ziusudra was the son of Ubara-Tutu. The last antediluvian king was the father of the man who survived the flood. The connections are deliberate. The scribes knew these stories. They placed Shurupak at the end of the antediluvian era on purpose, making the king list consistent with other flood traditions. Shuruppak itself has been excavated. It's a real place, located about halfway between Baghdad and the Persian Gulf. And the excavations found a flood layer, a thick deposit of water-laid silt, dating to approximately 2900 BCE. Not a global flood, but a catastrophic regional one. The kind of disaster that would have seemed world-ending to those who experienced it. The last antediluvian king ruled where the flood would hit hardest. His sons survived to begin the new world. The king list preserves this memory. Ubara Tutu, 18,600 years on the throne of Shuruppak. And then the flood swept over. What did he rule? What did he know? What was lost when the waters came? The king list doesn't say. It simply records his name and his reign. One more king in the long line from Eridu. One more impossible number. The last before everything changed. We have mentioned the flood layer at Shuruppak. It's not the only evidence. Excavations at Ur, Kish, and other Mesopotamian sites have also found flood deposits. Not all from the same event. Floods were common in the river valleys. But some layers are more significant than others. Deep, sterile, marking a clear break in occupation. When Leonard Woolley excavated Ur in the 1920s, he found a flood deposit over 8 feet thick. Below it, artifacts of one culture. Above it, artifacts of another. A dramatic discontinuity. Woolley famously telegraphed home, "We have found the flood." Later scholarship has been more cautious. The flood deposits at different sites don't all date to the same time. They may represent different events. Local catastrophes, not a single universal deluge. But this may miss the point. For people living in southern Mesopotamia 5,000 years ago, a regional flood of sufficient magnitude would have been their entire world ending. Everything they knew was the river valley. Beyond lay desert and mountains. Emptiness. A flood that covered everything they could see would indeed be the end of the world. And something did happen. Multiple somethings, perhaps. Catastrophic inundations that broke the continuity of settlement. That left survivors wondering what had been lost. The king list remembers. Then the flood swept over. 4 words that divide all of history. Before and after. The age of impossible kings and the age of mortal rulers. Whatever the flood was, local, regional, or dimly remembered global catastrophe, it marks the boundary, the moment when the old world ended, and ours began. After the flood, the king list continues for many more dynasties. Kish yields to Uruk. Uruk yields to Ur. Ur yields to Awan, to Hamazi, to Lagash, to Akkad. The list traces kingship through the 3rd millennium BCE and into the 2nd. Some versions continue as late as the fall of Isin, around 1730 BCE. This is documented history, verifiable by other sources. Kings whose inscriptions we can read, whose buildings we can excavate, whose treaties and letters survive. The reign lengths in this section make sense. 15 years, 24 years, 36 years. Normal human lifespans, normal political terms. This normalcy makes the antediluvian section even more puzzling. The same document that records plausible reigns for historical kings records implausible reigns for earlier ones. It's not a question of scribal error or exaggeration. The contrast is too stark, too systematic. Somewhere between Ubara Tutu's 18,600 years and Yushur's 1,200 years, something changed, and then kept changing. A gradual descent from impossible to possible, from myth to history. Or, if we take the king list at its word, from one kind of world to another. The flood didn't just destroy cities. It changed the rules. After the waters receded, time worked differently. Kings lived differently. The age of miracles was over. That's the story the king list tells, whether we believe it or not. Why did the Sumerians create the king list? The obvious answer is political. It established legitimacy, showed which cities had the right to rule. Trace the continuity of kingship from the gods themselves. A king who could place himself in this lineage was more than just a ruler. He was part of a cosmic order, connected to the descent of kingship from heaven, heir to the ages. This explains the historical sections, the careful tracking of dynasties, the noting of which city held kingship when. But does it explain the antediluvian section? No living dynasty in 1800 BCE could trace itself back to Alulim of Eridu. The flood had severed that connection. Kingship had to descend from heaven again. Including the antediluvian kings served a different purpose. It established the antiquity and dignity of kingship itself. It showed that civilization had deep roots, that the present order emerged from an order that was older still. There may also have been a religious dimension. The antediluvian period was sacred time, the age of the sages, the era when gods walked closer to humans. By remembering this age, the scribes kept alive the connection between heaven and earth, even if the connection had been weakened by the flood. And perhaps there was simply a desire to remember, to preserve what was known, to pass it on. The Sumerians were meticulous record keepers. They documented everything. Why wouldn't they document the oldest traditions they knew? The king list may have begun as mythology, or as encoded astronomy, or as genuine historical memory, however distorted by time. But it was preserved as record, treated as fact, copied and maintained for 3,000 years. Let us return to the object we began with, the weld-blundell prism, found at Larsa in 1922, now in the Ashmolean Museum at Oxford. It's a modest thing to look at. A four-sided clay pillar, about 8 inches tall, covered in tiny cuneiform script. It was created around 1800 BCE, during the reign of Sin-Magir, king of Isin, one of the last kings the list records. The scribe who made it was working from older sources, copying traditions that were already ancient, preserving a chronology that stretched back, according to the text itself, over 240,000 years. Think about that for a moment. A single object, small enough to hold in your hand, claims to encompass 250,000 years of history. No other document from the ancient world makes such a claim. The scribe who created the weld-blundell prism didn't add commentary. He didn't explain the impossible numbers. He didn't distinguish between mythological and historical kings. He simply recorded what the traditions said, carefully, completely, passing it on to whoever might read it next. For 3,800 years, the prism sat in the earth, buried in the ruins of Larsa, waiting. Now it sits in a museum case, studied by scholars, puzzled over by historians, dismissed by some, taken too literally by others. But it endures, a witness to an age we can barely comprehend, a record of what the Sumerians believed about their own past. The weld-blundell prism is not alone. In the ruins of Kish, another version of the king list was found. Fragmentary, damaged, but unmistakably the same tradition. The Kish tablet dates to an earlier period than the prism. Perhaps 2100 BCE or older. 3 centuries earlier. And yet it tells the same story. The same kings in the same order. The same impossible numbers. The same flood. Similar fragments have been found at Nippur, at Ur, at Isin. Each city maintained its own copy. Each scribe preserved the tradition across centuries, across dynastic changes, across the rise and fall of empires. The consistency is remarkable. It speaks to a shared tradition, an official memory, something the scribal schools taught, something the temples preserved. If the antediluvian section were mere myth, we might expect more variation. Different cities claiming different founders, different numbers reflecting local traditions. But the antediluvian section is the most consistent part of the list. 8 kings, 5 cities. The same numbers, the same names, the same sequence. Whatever the scribes believed they were recording, they agreed on what it was. The memory of the time before the flood, preserved in clay, transmitted across generations, waiting for us to understand it. Let us be honest about what we know. We cannot take the king list literally. No individual human being ruled for 28,800 years. That is not possible. But we also cannot dismiss it as meaningless fantasy. The numbers are too regular, too mathematical, too consistent across multiple sources. Something is being encoded. Something is being preserved. We just don't fully understand what it is. Here is what we can say with reasonable confidence. The Sumerians believed that civilization had deep roots, that kingship descended from heaven at the beginning of time, that an era of extraordinary rulers preceded the world they knew. They believed a great flood had ended that era, that civilization had to be rebuilt afterward, that the world before the flood was fundamentally different from the world after. They preserved this belief in an official document, copied carefully, maintained consistently, treated as historical record. The impossible numbers may encode astronomical cycles, They may represent dynasties rather than individuals. They may reflect a mathematical or religious system we no longer understand. But they meant something to the scribes who wrote them. Something important enough to preserve for millennia. We may never fully decode that meaning. But we can recognize that the king list is not simple mythology. It's not random invention. It's a carefully constructed document that preserves information in a form we don't completely understand. The Sumerians were not alone in remembering long-lived ancestors before a flood. We have already mentioned the Book of Genesis. 10 patriarchs from Adam to Noah. Lives spanning 800 to 900 years. The Hindu tradition preserves similar memories. The Yugas, the Great Ages, span hundreds of thousands of years. Beings of the earlier ages lived far longer than we do now. The Chinese have legends of emperors who ruled for impossibly long spans. The first 5 emperors, the mythical founders of Chinese civilization, are credited with reigns of hundreds or thousands of years. Egyptian king lists also show a pattern. The reigns of gods and demigods before the human pharaohs. Thousands of years before recorded history begins. This global pattern cannot be coincidence. Either multiple cultures independently developed the same idea that the distant past featured longer-lived beings, or they inherited it from a common source. Perhaps it's a universal human tendency to imagine the past as grander than the present, to believe our ancestors were greater than we are. Or perhaps it's memory, distorted by time, encoded in different systems, but preserving something real. The Sumerian king list stands as the oldest and most detailed version of this universal memory. The oldest attempt to quantify the unquantifiable, to measure the age before the flood. Whether the Sumerians got it right, we cannot say. But they tried. They recorded what they believed. They passed it on. And 5,000 years later, we're still trying to understand it. How long can a civilization remember? Our written records go back about 5,000 years. The Sumerians are at the beginning of that written tradition. Before them, there is only archaeology. Stones and bones. Artifacts without words. But oral tradition can preserve memories for much longer. Australian Aboriginal stories describe geological events that happened over 7,000 years ago. Sea level changes, volcanic eruptions, events science has confirmed. Could the Sumerian king list preserve memories that stretch back even further? The flood the Sumerians remembered may have occurred around 2900 BCE, or perhaps earlier. Some scholars connect Mesopotamian flood traditions to the massive flooding that occurred at the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 BCE and after. If the king list preserves memory of pre-flood civilization, how far back might those memories go? We cannot say. The numbers in the king list, 241,000 years, surely don't represent actual elapsed time. They're encoded somehow. Symbolic. Astronomical. But beneath the encoding, there may be real memory. Memory of a time before the catastrophe, when civilization existed in forms we don't recognize, when the world was different. The Sumerians believed they were inheritors, not inventors. They believed kingship descended from heaven at the beginning of time. That wisdom was given to them by beings greater than themselves. The king list preserves that belief. 8 kings ruling for ages. Then the flood. Then the world we know. Ciao. The king list tells us almost nothing about the antediluvian era beyond names and numbers. It doesn't describe what those kings did, what their cities looked like, how their societies functioned. Just names, just numbers, just the bare framework of chronology. This silence is itself significant. Other Sumerian texts fill in details about the antediluvian world. The Epic of Gilgamesh describes Utnapishtim's life before the flood. The Eridu Genesis describes the creation of cities. The Atrahasis epic describes why the gods sent the flood. But the king list offers none of this. It's not interested in stories, only in data. This suggests the king list had a specific purpose. Not to entertain, not to explain, but to record, to preserve essential information. The essential information was who ruled, where they ruled, and for how long. Everything else was secondary. This makes the impossible numbers all the more puzzling. If the scribes wanted accurate records, why include numbers that couldn't be accurate? If they wanted mythology, why make it so dry? Unless the numbers themselves were the point. Unless they encoded information that mattered. Astronomical cycles. Dynasty lengths. Something we haven't figured out. The silence of the list invites interpretation. We want to fill in the gaps. To imagine what the antediluvian world was like. But the list itself refuses to elaborate. 8 kings, 5 cities, 241,000 years. Then the flood swept over. We return to the fundamental question. What were the Sumerian scribes actually recording? We have considered several possibilities. Mythology. Sacred stories dressed as history. The distant past made more impressive through exaggeration. Encoded astronomy. Precession cycles and celestial observations hidden in rain lengths. Knowledge preserved in numerical form. Dynasty lengths rather than individual reigns. The House of Alulim, ruling for a period named after its founder. Genuine memory distorted by time. Real events stretched and compressed. The deep past made mythological through retelling. Each possibility has strengths and weaknesses. None fully explains the data. Perhaps the truth combines several of these. Memory and mythology. Astronomy and history. Layers of meaning compressed into a single document. What we can say is that the scribes treated the king list as important. They copied it carefully. They preserved it consistently. They included it in their historical records without apology or explanation. They believed they were recording something real, something that mattered, something that connected their world to the world before the flood. We may not understand what they were recording, but we should not assume they were confused or naive. They were meticulous record keepers. They knew the difference between years and months. They knew how to count. When they wrote that Alulim ruled for 28,800 years, they meant something by it. Figuring out what they meant is our challenge. Perhaps the most fascinating part of the king list is the transition. The period just after the flood, when rain lengths are still extraordinary but beginning to normalize. The first dynasty of Kish shows this clearly. Jushur rules for 1,200 years. Still impossibly long, but nothing like 28,800. Then Kulasina Bel rules for 960 years. Then Nangishlishma for 670 years. Bahina for 300 years. And so on. The numbers step down. Not randomly. Systematically. As if the world were settling into its new configuration. By the time we reach Etana, the famous king who ascended to heaven, we're at 1,560 years. Still legendary, but within sight of normal. Later dynasties show further compression. Until, by the middle of the 3rd millennium BCE, we're fully in historical time. Normal reigns. Verifiable kings. This transition is deliberate. The scribes weren't randomly assigning numbers. They were tracking something. A shift from one mode of time to another. What could cause such a shift? In the scribes' worldview, the flood changed everything. The old world was gone. The new world operated by different rules. Perhaps the impossible numbers represent not literal years, but something about the quality of time before the flood. Time was denser, more significant, packed with meaning that has since drained away. Or perhaps the transition reflects loss of knowledge. After the catastrophe, the old systems were damaged. Records were lost. Memory was broken. The descent from mythological to historical time might be the descent from confident knowledge to uncertain reconstruction. Post-flood kings, some are marked with special notes. Etana is described as the one who ascended to heaven, the one who stabilized all the lands. Other texts tell his story. He flew to heaven on the back of an eagle, seeking the plant of birth for his barren wife. A legendary king, but also one whom the king list treats as historical. 1,560 years on the throne of Kish. Gilgamesh, too, is marked. 5th king of the 1st dynasty of Uruk. 126 years. His father was a phantom, a high priest of Kulab. These notes suggest the scribes knew the difference between ordinary kings and extraordinary ones. They flagged the special cases. The kings who transcended normal categories. And yet, they didn't flag the antediluvian kings as mythological. No special markers. No legendary or Diyan. Just names and numbers. This is striking. If the scribes understood that Etana and Gilgamesh were special, why didn't they understand that Alalim and Allogar were mythological? Perhaps because they didn't see them that way. Perhaps to the scribes, the antediluvian kings were simply very old rulers from a very different time. But no more mythological than Gilgamesh himself. The line between myth and history wasn't where we draw it. It may not have existed at all. For the Sumerians, history stretched back continuously from their own day to the moment kingship descended from heaven. One unbroken chain, interrupted only by the flood, but never by the boundary between true and legendary. Imagine standing before the weld-blundell prism in its museum case. The lights are low. The galleries are quiet. You're alone with this object that claims to remember what you've forgotten. It's small. You could hold it in one hand if the glass weren't there. Clay shaped by human fingers, marked by reed styluses pressed into wet earth. 3,800 years ago, a scribe sat in Larsa and made this object, copying from older sources, preserving a tradition already ancient. He didn't know Oxford would exist, didn't know museums would exist, didn't know you would exist. But he preserved the information anyway, believing it mattered, believing someone someday would want to know. When Kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. Those words have survived for nearly 4 millennia, surviving the fall of Babylon, the rise and fall of Persia, the coming of Greece and Rome, the Islamic conquests, the modern age. Through all of it, the clay waited, until archaeologists dug it up. Scholars translated it, and the old words spoke again. What do they tell us? That once upon a time, 8 kings ruled for 241,000 years. That a flood swept over. That kingship descended again. That the world began again. Believe it or not, that's what the clay says. The Sumerian king list doesn't demand belief. It simply presents names, numbers, the structure of time as the scribes understood it. We are free to interpret as we choose. To see mythology, to see encoded astronomy, to see distorted memory, to see something we haven't yet imagined. What the king list asks of us is attention. To take seriously what ancient people took seriously. To consider that they might have known something we don't, or understood something differently than we do. The modern temptation is to dismiss what we don't understand. Impossible numbers, mythology, ancient nonsense. But that dismissal assumes we know better than the people who created these records, the people who invented writing, who developed mathematics, who tracked the stars with precision we're still learning to appreciate. Perhaps they were naive. Perhaps they exaggerated. Perhaps they got it wrong. Or perhaps they encoded something we haven't decoded. Preserved knowledge in a form we don't recognize. Passed down truth in the only way they could. The king list doesn't answer these questions. It raises them. It invites us to consider, to wonder, to remain humble before the mysteries of the past. 241,000 years of kings before the flood. What if they were recording something real? Sure. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, consider the stars. They wheel overhead as they did 5,000 years ago, as they did 50,000 years ago, as they did when Kingship first descended from heaven, whenever that was. The Sumerians watched those same stars. They tracked their movements. They encoded what they learned in mathematics, in architecture, in chronology. The numbers on the king list may be astronomical, cycles of precession, ages of the zodiac, time measured not by human lifespans but by cosmic movements. Or they may be something else entirely, something we haven't figured out. Either way, the stars continue. Alulim's stars, Ubaratutu's stars, the scribes' stars who made the Prism, your stars. The universe doesn't care about our timekeeping. It moves in cycles too large for us to grasp. Precession, galactic rotation, expansion. Perhaps the Sumerians were trying to connect human history to these larger cycles, to place their civilization in cosmic context, to show that kingship wasn't just a human invention, but something woven into the fabric of the universe. That's what descended from heaven might mean. Not aliens in spacecraft, but something more subtle. The cosmic order reflected in earthly kingship. The stars made manifest in human civilization. The desert wind still blows across southern Iraq, carrying sand that was once the walls of Eridu, the mud brick temples of the first city, eroded to dust, scattered by the age. But the clay tablets endure. In museums around the world, thousands of Sumerian tablets wait in drawers and cases. Many still untranslated, many still unread. What do they remember? Business transactions, school exercises, temple records, legal disputes, the everyday business of a civilization 5,000 years gone. And among them, the king lists. Copies of copies of copies, stretching back to the beginning, when kingship descended from heaven. The clay remembers what we have forgotten. That once there were kings who ruled for ages. That a flood swept everything away. That the world began again. Whether this is history or mythology or encoded astronomy or something else, the clay remembers it, holds it, preserves it. And now, across 5,000 years, it whispers to us. 8 kings ruled before the flood. Their reigns totaled 241,000 years. Then the flood swept over. What does it mean? The clay doesn't explain. It simply remembers and waits for us to understand. Tonight, we've examined the Sumerian king list, a document small enough to hold in your hand that claims to remember 241,000 years of kings before the flood. We've looked at the numbers, the patterns, the multiple copies from different cities, the transition from impossible to possible reigns. We've considered what the scribes might have been recording. Mythology, astronomy, dynasties, real memory distorted by time. We cannot say with certainty what the king list means, but we can say that it was important, preserved carefully across millennia, treated as historical record, the oldest attempt to measure the unmeasurable. Somewhere in those impossible numbers, something is encoded. Something the Sumerians knew or believed or remembered. Something that connected their world to the world before the flood. We are still trying to decode it. Still trying to understand what they meant. Still listening to voices from 5,000 years ago. And perhaps that's the point. Not to solve the mystery, but to keep asking the question. When Kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. This has been an exploration of ancient mysteries. A journey into the oldest chronology ever written. Rest well tonight, and dream of the time before the flood, when kings ruled for ages, and the scribes wrote it all down, knowing that someday someone would want to know. Good night.